Hello and welcome to Paradise Fibers. This is another episode of Kyle's Corner, and this video goes out especially for Karen and Dolly, who have requested how to put warp on their 10-inch Beka Rigid Heddle Loom. It'll be the same for the 4-inch. I personally, to be completely honest with you, have never warped a Beka loom. This is actually going to be my first time, so please bear with me. Hopefully we can come up with a simple way and show you exactly how to put that warp on this Beka. So this is the 10-inch Beka loom. This is exactly what it looks like coming out of the box. You can see the warp's already on it. This is what it looks like when you've actually taken it off. Now I've taken the warp off this one, so that's what it's going to look like. This is going to be the end that you're working from, and this is the end that actually is going to hold all your warp and give you your tension. So there's a lot of different ways that you can actually warp a loom. Most people prefer to use this device here, which is actually called a warping board or a warping frame. They're a really handy tool. I'm not going to go into too much detail, and I'm actually not going to use this just because it can be a little scary at first, and I could do a whole video on just how to use this warping board. So that'll be a video we do in the future, but for now I'm going to try and do this with nothing but stuff you would find around your house. So what I have here is some mercerized cotton. This is what I'm going to use for my warp. For those of you that aren't familiar with warp, your warp is the yarns that are running perpendicular to you as you're weaving. They go through this reed or heddle. Your weft is the yarn that runs parallel with you. So make sure when you're deciding what yarn you want to warp with, you get a yarn that's strong, that's plied. Cotton, linen, a lot of those yarns are used for warp. This is the mercerized cotton I'm going to use today. And what I'm going to do is actually tie this off to 2 chairs. So I've created a distance here between these 2 chairs. You'll see throughout this video that your warp is actually going to be twice the distance of these chairs. So let's get going, and hopefully we can do this the first time around. I'm just going to set my yarn on the floor in between these chairs here and get myself a loop. I'm going to tie off to this first chair. Okay, so there is 20 slots on this loom right here in front of us. They're using 20 holes in this heddle. So I'm going to try and duplicate this warp here just to give you an idea of what you'll be up against for just this small amount of warp. So we're going to wrap this around the chair 20 times. And I'm just going to go from chair to chair. So I'm going to count really quick. I think I have 17, but if you lose track and you want to know how much warp you have, just count one side. 2, 3, 4. And there's 17. Alright, last one. So there is 20. So you're going to want a pair of scissors. And what you're going to do now is you're going to cut one end of this warp. And I would cut it right in the center so you can see that it's even. Okay, so once that has been cut, what you're going to do is tie this end in a knot. No. Again, bear with me, this is my first time. So you're going to tie one side of the warp. So here's the other side that I cut down here on the chair. You're just going to tie a little overhand knot on this one side of the warp. Just like that. And you can see here that this is now my warp. So it's twice the distance of these chairs. One thing you can do if you're not ready to weave yet, you can daisy chain this. So it's just a whole bunch of overhand knots. So you make a loop and pull it through. Make a loop and pull it through. Make a loop and pull it through. And then you can set that down on your table or store it away. And then next time you're ready to weave, you just grab the one end and your warp pulls out. It doesn't get tangled up. That's how a lot of people do it. They'll daisy chain their warp until they are ready to warp their loom. So we are actually ready to warp this loom. So I will show you probably the best way to do it that I know of, and we'll go from there. So the first step is you're going to unloosen these two wing nuts here. Okay, so that comes off. You're going to take the very end of your warp that we tied that knot in, and you're going to stick it right inside there and clamp it down. I'll lift this up here and show you the bottom side of it. So there's your warp. And these washers go on the side that the wing nuts are on. And do not tighten this down all the way just yet. Leave it a little bit loose. Okay, so it's still a little bit loose in there. You can see here's the back side of it. There's your knot that you made. What we're going to do now, and that's going to hold it, and that's actually going to keep tension on there for you. So that's the purpose of that knot right there, is to make sure it doesn't slide through this once you tighten it down. So remember, we did not tighten that down all the way. The reason is because I'd like to get this warp spread out a little bit just to make sure these are straightened. If it's on a big ball, it might get a little bit difficult. So I'm just going to kind of manipulate it with my hands to see all of it's pretty much laid flat now, so I kind of know which direction each warp is going to be. And then you can tighten this back up. Alright, so there is your warp. Okay, so you can see I pulled this first strand away from the rest of them. You're going to guesstimate where the middle of this heddle is. Now you know you have 20 pieces of warp, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to call that the middle and count 10 slots to the left, and that's where I'm going to start this warp. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is where I'm going to start right here, and this is where this heddle hook comes in handy.
You know what they need to do is when people bring stuff, they need to look at it and say, this is not.
You're going to pull it through, and you're going to do that for the rest of the pieces for the warp. But you can see here that this goes the long way. Your next one is going to go right inside this hole here. And that's what's going to create your shed. So this next piece we're going to put right through that hole. And I just realized that my heddle hook does not fit through that small hole, so that's actually really good, because now I won't recommend that hook for this particular loom. So make sure if you are using a Beka Rigid Heddle Loom, note that this heddle hook will not fit through those holes, so you will have to, a darning needle or anything, I'm just going to use my awesome skills here, and it's going to go right into that eye hole there. And like I said, this is my first time doing this loom. What I would probably do next time is find some way to prop this up. You know, get some weights on both sides of it. Any way to prop this up, it's going to be a lot easier on you as you're warping this. Get my third piece here. And that third piece is going to go into the next immediate slot. Like so. And you're just going to keep going until you get to the last piece of warp. I managed to completely run my warp through my heddle here. We got 5 on top and 5 on the bottom. So there's your 20 eyes that we went through. Now one thing that I was learning as I was putting this together, when you're wrapping this around your chair and say you're doing 20, what I would do is tie off every 5. So imagine this is the warp that's going around the chair. I'd get 5 out, tie a little string around it, and then get the next 5 and tie a little string around that. So every 5 you go around, get a little piece of scrap yarn and just tie those into bundles. It'll make this a lot easier as you're going through. So the warp is on and you have all this leftover warp behind it. And here's what we're gonna do. Now you can take the end of this loom, you can hook it to a chair, you can have your husband, your wife, your cousin, your brother hold this, because you're going to want somebody to have a little tension on it. Since I'm a little short-handed right now, what I'm going to do is actually attach it to a warping peg that we have already set up on the table here. So I'm just going to hook the back of the loom to this warping peg, and I will show you your next step. So there it is, hooked on to the warping peg, and I'm actually going to get all my warp to the end of the table. You can see here it's all bundled up. It'll be just fine, because what we're going to do next is run our reed through it. Alright, so you have your helper, just dropped my scissors, darn it, holding your loom. And you're just going to take this and run this slowly down to the end. It's going to straighten out all your warp for you. Make sure you don't have any knots. Another thing that I found out is it'd be really tough to probably do the way we're doing it here. It'd be tough to do it with a wool or something that's got a grab to it, a really coarse fiber. It'd be pretty difficult. You would definitely have to tie off all 5 strands in sections as you're warping it. This mercerized cotton is very forgiving. The knots just come out with your fingers, so keep that in mind. If you're not using a mercerized cotton or something that's really slick, you're definitely going to want to tie those off. Okay, so it is very, very, very important that you don't run that through all the way to the end, because all that warping you just did would be a complete waste. So I'm going to run down here and secure this. Okay, so now that this has been secure, I'm going to get some nice even tension on it. And you are going to split this right down the middle, or just get close. So you're basically going to have 10 and 10 on each side.
Oh. So 8 ounces is a half a pound?
Yep. And if you go to a full pound, you get 34%.
Really?
And then the next break doesn't happen until like 22 pounds. So.
Well,
What you're going to do
Yeah, that's like
is actually just combine those, do another overhand knot, pull that through. Okay, so there is your overhand knot. Now, the reason we tied an overhand knot right here is because all these threads might not be the exact same length at the end of your warp. So as long as you have a really good tension on there and all of them feel like they're pulling the exact same, once you tie that overhand knot, you know all of these strands are pretty dang accurate and pretty close to the same length. So now we have this knot, and you're probably wondering what we're going to do with it. Well, first we're going to take this reed and slide it all the way back up to the front. And you're going to want to keep tension on this because you're not going to want a bunch of loose strands up front here. So, and you're going to get this piece here that clamps onto the back. And you can see that it's got 2 slots cut in it, and this is where you're going to actually apply the warp. You're going to come back down to your knot you made here. You're going to split that in half. Again, this is my first time. You're not going to go to the knot. You're going to come to the back of this heddle here because you don't want your warp to cross. And you're going to split it there. So you can see it split, and then you know you're right on at the end. You're going to take this block and you are going to put that knot dead center of that piece of wood. Dead center of that. Now you're probably going to have some extra warp. I do. You can just cut that right off because you're not even going to use it. You got your partner down there holding the loom for you. And you're just going to pull that towards the center. And now it's just a matter of rolling it up. And you're going to want to apply tension the whole time you're doing this, because if you have any loose strands in here, your warp's going to go limp on you and it's going to make it really difficult. So make sure you keep applying tension. You keep pulling this up towards the front of the loom. You can take it off or have your partner let go. That's going to slide in that hole, and you're going to go, I can't twist it one more time and still get it on. There's no way I can do that. That is okay. I will show you what you're going to do. You're going to loosen these again really quick. And this is also how you would advance this. Once you start weaving and you apply that weft, this is how you would advance it. Just pull it nice and taut. Tighten her back up. And you have now warped your Beka loom. You can see there that there's your shed for the bottom. You lift it up, there's your shed for the top. One thing you can probably do is run some starter down here, put a couple strands in without beating it. So run some weft through it, pull it down here, put it in the down position, run another piece through it, and then come down and beat it, and that's going to spread all these out. Thanks for checking us out at Paradise Fibers today. I hope you enjoyed our video on how to warp this Beka Rigid Heddle Loom. I hope it was as informational for you as it was for me, as again, this was our first time doing it here. So, my name is Kyle. I work here in the weaving department at Paradise Fibers. You can email me at kyle@paradisefibers.com. I can answer any questions you might have. Check us out at www.paradisefibers.com. And don't forget to give us a call, 888-320-7746. This is Kyle at Paradise Fibers, signing off.